I think it's absolutely abusive. What creates self-worth? Well, this 20-year-old that just shot Trump, okay? What did his classmates say? He was bullied. He was an outcast. He never fit in. How do you develop self-worth in a young person? I'm not a child psychologist, but here's my formula. I believe self-worth comes from successfully accomplishing meaningful tasks. And all four of those words are important. Successfully accomplishing meaningful tasks.
That was Joel Salatin, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host, Charlie Arnott.
G'day, welcome to this episode of The Regenerative Journey. It's with Joel Salatin. Now, back in 2020, actually 2019, I interviewed Joel as part of a conference that he and I were doing at Nutrisoils down there, the guys at Nutrisoils near Albury in May 2019. And I had the pleasure to interview Joel, and the guys at Nutrisoils were very generous in allowing me some time with Joel. And that was it's actually the second interview I'd ever done for the podcast. The first was with Martin Royds, and he appeared on, I think, season 2. So Joel was number 1 in season 1. That was 6 years ago now. And luckily last year, very fortunately last year, my family and I went to the US, and about midway through our tour in July last year, I caught up with Joel at Polyface Farm. I'd never been there, heard so much about it. Thank you, Wendy, for helping set that little rendezvous up. To see Joel in action on his farm, have a personal tour. And also it was amazing because on that day, he was hosting a group of Coast Guards as part of the leadership and the sort of the personal development programs that he's involved with. And just to see him in action with that group, farming, producing amazing food. We saw the production system, certainly his abattoir there, processing chickens. And in all that, we somehow squeezed in a wonderful interview. Now, the first one I did all those years ago was really about Joel's life. And this one was much more around contemporary things, what he'd done in the last couple of years. We talked about politics. It was actually a couple of days after that assassination attempt on President Trump, Donald. So we touched on a bit of politics. It was actually pre the election as well. So lots has happened since then, obviously. But I'll leave it with you, Joel Salatin. And thank you, Joel. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for the team there at Polyface for giving me the time to do that again. And it was wonderful to catch up with Joel. What a generous spirit. What a generous man. What a wonderful family and business he has there in Swoop, Virginia. And I trust that you enjoy this interview on the Regenerative Journey with Joel Salatin. Joel Salatin, welcome to the Regenerative Journey. And welcome to your office.
Yeah, we're right here.
A place you're no doubt familiar with.
Yeah, I am.
Do you spend much time in here or usually out in the garden?
No, I don't spend much time in here. I have my own desk in the house, and so this is for most of the other the team members that are really making things happen.
And there's quite a team.
It is quite a team.
How many have you got?
There's about 22 full-time salaries here. So, and not all those are active farming. I mean, that includes bookkeeping and sales and inventory management and things like that. But yeah, it's a pretty significant team.
And we're going straight to it, because for those who haven't listened to my previous interview with Joel, how dare you, but I'll let you off. But before we get to Polyface and being here, which is where we are, so if you haven't already worked it out, we are at Polyface. farm here at Swoop, Virginia.
Swoop.
Swoop. I've been called Swoop.
Well, it looks like Swoop. It's SWOOPE.
Well, it's got the E. So that makes it a swope.
Yeah, the E makes, I guess. I don't know.
But we better call it swope.
It's swope.
It's like chooks and chickens.
Yeah.
And so we met 5 years ago. I remember it was May, and you were out in Australia doing something with regionality with Rose Wright.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Up at, where was it?
Byron Bay.
Byron Bay, it wasn't
Byron Bay.
Yeah, and sort of north of there, and there was the conference there, the 2-day. And then you were on quite the roadshow then, weren't you? I think
yes.
You went to Albury at the guys down there at Nutrisoil. Nutrisoil, sorry.
Nutrisoil, the worm.
Totally, yep.
Worm place.
Yep. Awesome guys down there, and you spoke. I had a bit of a chat there in the big marquee, and there's a bit of a tour. But then some years before, I'd met you very briefly at Taranaki Farm.
With Ben Falloon.
Ben Falloon, and it was a 1 day. You might have done a couple of days, but I did the 1 day, and you showed how to put together one of your mobile.
Did that demonstration
demo there? Yeah. That was awesome, and we did
my Australia trips running. I've been to Australia 16 times, and so I mean, man, I've been all over that country. I haven't been right in the interior, in the middle. But obviously, I've been on both the east and west coasts, all up and down the coasts, and as far inland as Orange and Canberra, and
that's a few hours from the coast.
Yeah, but not. I haven't been in the, way out there in the outback.
They call it the Red Centre.
Yeah,
because it is red.
The Red Centre,
which would be interesting. I'm sure it'd be interesting for you. There's not a whole lot of chicken.
Well, when I did a seminar in Perth. And at Majup.
Yeah, everything's up over there.
Yeah.
Majup.
I had some attendees from way interior that had 1 million acres.
Small.
Yeah. As I said, I was staggered. He said, "Oh, mate, that's small. My neighbor is 10 million.
Is that
I'm sorry, 2 million. 2 million.
Yeah,
1 million, 2 million. It's just massive. But truly, we probably have as much grass on our 1,000 acres as they do on 100,000 acres.
I have no doubt, because we've just spent a few hours looking around, and the biodiversity. No, it's fair income. I think it's a really good. Your stocking rate is so much higher, and obviously you've got different species.
Yeah.
But you might enjoy it out there, and it's more the cultural appreciation and the wonder and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And there are good people out there doing wonderful things. Obviously, it's small scale. It's more, within their home environment. They've got the chickens and their veggie, all those sort of things.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Are you heading back at all? Have you got any plans?
I don't have any plans yet, but I mean, things are starting to loosen up now post COVID, and so I hope I get back.
PC.
Post COVID, or AAC after COVID, BC and AC. But I certainly hope to get back. I have a lot of friends in Australia because I've been there so many times. Love Australians, and my sense of Australia is I do a lot of seminars around the world, and I always talk about many of the most innovative regenerative ag things come from Australia. I mean, you've got Bill Mollison and Dave Holmgren started permaculture. You got P.A. Yeomans, the key line and the water for every farm. I mean, you've got Darren Doherty with Regrarians. You have there's a fair amount of biodynamics there. But
Peter Andrews,
Peter Andrews, the river, right? And so as I've gotten acquainted with all these people and things, it's made me wonder why. Why is all this? And so here's my take, and it may be completely wrong. My take is that Australia is an extremely fragile ecology, which puts it on the edge of things. But the difference between Australia being a fragile economy and many other ecology and many other fragile ecologies on the planet is Australia is wealthy, mining, the money. And so here we have people who are ecologically fragile, but have enough wealth to actually do something. And that's what makes it so unique and why the world looks at Australia for a lot of this innovative stuff.
Well, that's a good point, isn't it? Like, and I guess we're probably, as a people, we're probably reasonably resourceful because it's fragile, because...
Well, you're all a bunch of jailbirds, right?
We are. Mate, we are. And that comes with some advantages, doesn't it? We're resourceful.
Yeah, that's right.
Cunning and resourceful.
Yeah, the jailbird will survive.
That's it. Yeah. So, no, it's a good point. When you're up against the odds, so to speak, and you're a resourceful type of people, you have to be able to adapt and you have to be able to make do somewhat. Yeah. And like our normal, and I am generalising a little bit, Australia, like Burrawa, where I'm from, Joel, which is just an hour and a half north of Canberra, where our normal is what it is, right?
Yeah,
So we deal with that, and it's half the rainfall that what's your rainfall here?
Our rainfall is 30 inches.
Oh, 30. So so we're only 25.
We're talking about 700 mil.
Okay, yeah. So you are a little bit more than us, but I guess different seasons. But our normal is what it is, and so you just got to deal with whatever that is. And we have long, extended periods of drought. Could be some years, so we have to deal with that. And so everyone has their challenges.
Sure.
But you're right. Having said that, though, with the research I did when I came over here, and I knew of yourself and many others, and sure, your population's like 1 point. It's like many, many times greater than Australia.
Oh, yeah, it's about 10 times greater.
That's it.
300, about 340 million.
We got like 28.
Is the U.S., and you're about 28. So I know, generally the U.S. is right at about 10 times
the Aussies.
The Aussies,
yeah. So I guess you got a greater population.
With the same land mass.
Don't know. No, that's true, yeah.
A lot less rain.
So how does that,
well, we have a lot more rain. Australia has a lot less.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't have this massive. Our interior is the Midwest.
Yeah.
The grain belt of the world,
which was the grassland belt.
Which was the prairie. It was the bison, the prairie. Yes.
So how do you think your population, 10 times Australia at least, is? How does that make? What's the impact of just the population compared to Australia on agriculture here? What does it mean for, you've got, is it a greater market to fill?
Yes.
People live closer. Like what are some of the, I guess, the benefits of having a massive population?
The benefit is that even that many, many more small farmers can actually make a full-time living farming because the population base is big enough to, there's a market. There's a market big enough to sustain it. I know that many of the times when I go to Australia, marketing is a big hurdle, especially if you're out kind of far away from population. You get up in Queensland. Some of those, even though you've got good rainfall, it's good, but there's just nobody around. And
also I think you've got your own poultry set up for processing birds. There's a big difference in Australia. I don't think we can just have that sort of thing.
We have this wonderful federal exemption here that allows you to do 20,000 birds of your own growing and sell them to any end user. So you can't sell them to a grocery store, but you can sell them to a restaurant, an institution. You can sell it to a grocery store deli, because that's an end user. In other words, nothing else is going to happen to that before it goes into somebody's stomach.
Yeah, sure.
So you can sell it to a person, a family, a restaurant, like a school lunch program.
So as long as someone doesn't buy it from you and then turn it into a roast chicken and sell that, you can't do that. Or
That's
you
right.
can't sell to them.
Yeah, we can't sell to a supermarket an uncooked chicken that somebody's going to buy and take home and do that. That's a second. That's not an end user.
Yep.
That's a second user. But anyway, it's a wonderful exemption that recognizes scale. And I think one of the biggest problems we have with food safety regulations is that they're so scale prejudicial. They don't recognize that if you're playing a pickup rugby game in a backyard on a Sunday afternoon with a couple of friends, you adapt the rules, and you still have a good time. You don't need what the industry calls a level playing field. It would be like saying, anybody can play rugby, but you can only do it on a regulation field. and that's what these food safety regulations end up doing. Is say, you can butcher chicken, but you can only do it in a $400,000 facility. Well, suddenly, a person an entrepreneur that wants to start at a prototype level of 500 birds, well, you could never justify spending $400,000 for a facility to butcher 300 birds in. And so the result is that the embryo, the prototype embryo, is too big to be birthed, and so you have stillbirths. You have market access stillbirths.
And so here, which is a great advantage here, because someone can intern here, someone can read your book, someone can literally, as long as they comply. So there are still some standards. You still have to get, you get the tick and so on. But isn't it an interesting thing? I think your facility here is cleaner. Like, you go to an industrial one and they've got the chlorine and they've got to hit a certain spec of whatever the things are. Yours is actually doesn't have any of that crap.
That's right. That's
right.
Cleaner. Yeah, and we don't use any chlorine.
No.
Any antimicrobials. Again, when you're only doing 300 to 600 at a time, a couple of days a week, seasonally, it's a lot easier to keep things clean than if you're running around the clock at industrial scale with thousands and thousands of birds. And what's interesting is that our actual chicken meat pound turnout per person hour is right as efficient as an industrial facility.
And the good thing, every pound of chicken that comes out of here is, I imagine, so much more nutritionally dense.
The nutritional density is so much better. Your omega-3, omega-6s are balanced better. You've got more of your riboflavin, the fats, the polyunsaturated, saturated are much more balanced. All those things because of the salad.
And the chickens have had a lovely time.
They have. They've had a.
We just had a look at the lovely chickens having a lovely time, and the pigs. Yeah. I'll put some of that stuff on YouTube with your permission, with the pigs, and they were the happiest. I guess I'd like to say fat, but it wasn't like fat as an unhealthy fat. They were just lovely and solid and healthy specimens hanging out for the rain, which we got a couple of spits of. Hopefully, before the end of this interview, no one can hear us because it'll be that noisy.
I would love that to happen.
What was it called?
Toad strangler. When rain comes so hard, it drowns the toads, strangles the toads.
So fingers crossed for that. Joel, just to put us back in the context of Polyface, my first trip, can we just sort of give the listeners and viewers a sense of the season here? Like, my sense was when I got here was it's a little dry. Like, where are we up to? We're in July. This is not going to come out in July. It might be in a few months' time.
So we're in the middle of our summer. Yeah. We're in the middle of our summer, and we had a dry March, and then it really started raining, and we ended up with a real nice, late spring, and then it's shut off now, and we basically haven't had rain now for about a month, and it's been hot. It's been in the 90s. So, Celsius, we're looking at, 31, 32, 35 Celsius through the last 3 weeks. Boy, that just dries stuff out. Just real heat.
You made hay.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made good hay. We had rain just in time to really bring on the hay, and we got through that, and then it started to dry up, and we began irrigating because we've built enough ponds that we have a pretty good water inventory. So we threw a couple of inches of water on quite a few acres, and then we actually drained 2 of our large ponds. We have one more big pond still with a lot of water in it, so we'll continue to irrigate from that one. But we've got some clouds that today is the nicest looking prospect of rain we've had in a long time. So we hope our Australian friends brought us some rain.
Fingers crossed. Should any of your interns be running around cleaning out gutters or getting prepared for this toad strangling rainfall event?
No,
you just let it rain.
We just let it rain. It'll be fine.
Tell me, back to the hay. It's a bit operational and practical, but just to give people a sense of why you're cutting hay. What's the purpose for those who don't know the program here? Where does that hay get used?
Sure. So in the winter, our average snowfall is 24 inches in a winter, and we get enough cold to ice skate on the ponds for about a week a winter. So really? So we get ice on the ponds that's 8 to 10 inches thick, and so of course at that time the grass isn't growing. Nothing green is going to grow at that time, and so we stockpile forage. Late in the season. Stockpile means you defer grazing on it late in the season and let it grow as tall as it will before winter sets in, and then it sits there on the stalk, and you try to and you strategically punch through it through the winter. So generally we don't have enough of that stockpiled forage to take us all the way through the winter. So we feed hay for 40 days a winter or so. Average around here is 120. So we feed hay, but it's a lot less than the average around here. And we're running 3 times as many cows per acre. So it's not because we're running fewer animals per acre. But the other reason to make hay is because in the spring, you have this huge bulge. If you could chart the grass growth, you'd have this great big spike in the spring, and then it drops off in the summer, and then most of the time we get a little bump in the fall. You get some fall rains, it cools off a little bit, you get this little bump. And so that bump then becomes your deferred stockpile. But if you don't harvest that big bump in the spring, if you don't harvest it, then it gets old, dormant, goes into senescence, and actually mulches out what would be new growth underneath. And so if you were just a cattle trader, say, for example, some people, they say, well, buy cows when you have grass and sell them when you don't. All right. Well, if that was our strategy, if we were just trading, okay, well, we'd buy a bunch in the spring, have them for 2 or 3 months, sell them, drop the herd back down, and we would fluctuate our herd with the grass growth. But we're in the direct marketing business. We have a brand, and we direct market about 300 beeves a year. So we have a pipeline of these animals, coming in. And if there's one thing a customer, even a good loyal customer, will never forgive you for, it's running out. Because when they want a T-bone steak, they want a T-bone steak. And if I don't have a T-bone steak, they're going to go somewhere else to get a T-bone steak. And so one of the reasons to make hay is to freshen up, to harvest that spring bulge and restart the grass growth, so you actually don't have all your grass growing dormant in the summer, and it can actually continue to grow on into the summer, and you actually end up growing way more grass than you than you otherwise would. And so the pruning to restart the aggressive grass growth can either be done with strategic grazing or strategic mowing. But if you don't do either one, it just gets tall, turns to seed head, goes brown, and you're done.
And then you made a wonderful point some years ago. I remember listening, watching about methane, and which is a whole nother conversation, a whole series of podcasts probably. But the whole, all we hear is the methane coming out the front and back of cows and going up in one direction, and it's staying there and it's killing the planet, right?
Right.
You made the great point of saying if we don't eat that grass, That's same right. amount of methane essentially as it deteriorates and composts and
as it desiccates and rots basically, it's going to give off the same amount of we say methane here, methane, chooks and chicks.
What do you say? Methane.
Methane.
Meth.
Meth, right, like methamphetamine. It gives off the same amount, and that's why in the world, what is it? Something like I think 80% of all the methane produced on the planet comes from wetlands, swamps and wetlands.
Rotting.
They don't actually come from cows or anything else. Yeah. But the other thing I think is important to understand about the methane.
I got you now.
Yeah, you got me now. Is that a healthy pasture grows a tremendous amount of methanotrophic bacteria. And methanotrophic bacteria does not grow under overgrazed pasture, under concrete, under dirt, and it requires a healthy sod canopy to grow in that soil. And healthy methanotrophic bacteria in a pasture will suck down and digest. So this is a freestanding bacteria. In other words, it's not like a rhizome on a legume root or anything like that. It's freestanding bacteria that will suck down enough methane to handle the methane created by 1,000 cows per acre. Well, nobody's going to have 1,000 cows per acre. And so nature has a wonderful way of actually I'm not going to say compensating, leveraging, actually synergizing all this methane and getting it to work in the soil by this methanotrophic bacteria.
And again, that's the bit we don't hear about.
No, you don't hear about that. But let me say very quickly, that is not under corn. It's not under soybeans. It's not under feedlots. It's not under it. And if a pasture is very abused and overgrazed, like so much of it is, that shuts it down as well. So it's only healthy, vibrant, really flourishing prairie pasture that this bacteria flourishes.
Which is kind of cool because that's where you're growing healthy animals.
Absolutely, yeah.
Healthy, nutritious meat. Yeah. Tell me about a little thing I always defer to, and I try and avoid conversations around methane with anyone because, unless it's with someone we're just discussing it because we're on the same page and we just sort of rolling our eyes about the ridiculous nature of it all.
Yeah.
And you might be able to correct me here, and I always defer to when I do get into one of those conversations with someone who's getting a bit antsy about it. I say, well, look, I always reference the United States that in North America there were roughly 300 million bison.
Oh, yeah. If you go down, that's a wonderful,
it's just like
related. Yeah. 500 years ago, here's the 500 years ago, there were way more pounds of animal in North America, in the world, than there are today.
Yeah. And so when you say pounds of animal, as in We're talking about ruminants?
I'm talking about all animals.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
we had 200 million beavers.
Yeah, right.
200 million beavers, and like the wombats in Australia that they've now discovered these 9-foot wombats that
Megafauna,
we've found some beaver skeletons here that are the size of a Volkswagen automobile. That's a big beaver.
That's a big teeth.
Yeah. I mean, they would have. I mean, today's beavers that we have, a big beaver might weigh 75 pounds.
Do you have beavers here?
We do.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if we have beavers on the farm right now, but when you came across the bridge right there, that dam above the bridge, that's a beaver dam right there above the bridge coming in the lane right here. Yeah. Take a picture of it on your way out.
Oh, on the top side.
On the upriver side. Upriver side. In fact, it's got a bunch of.
So when I go out the gate on the right.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, cool.
Go out. When you sit on the bridge, stop on the bridge, look down, and you'll see it's got a bunch of grass on it. It's all grown up because we haven't had a flood since they built it. Yeah, and they've moved on. They built another one, half a mile down the river. They built another one half a mile up the river. I mean, they move, come in, from time to time. But what they do, they eat themselves out of their habitat. They build a dam, and then they move somewhere else.
But it's like a community service, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It slows the river down. Creates places for silt. And of course, back in the day, I mean, these were massive dams. Lakes that the beavers would make. So here's my point. Yeah, we had bison, we had elk, all these beavers. Yeah, it's raining. Cool. We had all these. We had birds. I mean, Audubon, the naturalist Audubon, sat under a tree in 1837. Maybe 1817. Anyway, he recorded in his diary. He said, "I couldn't see the sun for 3 days because the flock of birds that flew over blocked out the sun for 3 days." I mean, that's pretty serious.
That's a lot of biology, isn't it?
And that's before wheat, barley, John Deere, plows, the Green Revolution, before all that. So this notion that there was nothing here until Europeans came is simply not true. Just like the greatest estate about Australia talks about the Aborigines, how they changed the river courses and they flooded out the deltas and all that. It's just fascinating. This notion that only in modern times have we become efficient at food production is simply a misnomer. It's just not true.
And so, back to the biology that was on the planet 500 years ago, and methane.
It's raining, man.
It's
raining. Look at this.
Do you want to run outside in the nude and just get wet and then come back in? Because if you want to, that's fine.
No, that's okay.
I'll turn the camera off. This is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a real rain.
Is that like half toad strangling kind of fall?
Yeah, that's probably half toad strangling. Yeah.
That's like toad.
And you know what? Those pigs up there are just.
Yeah,
they're just loving it. I mean, they're getting washed and
cooled down. All those little dusty wallows.
Are going to be now little muddy. Oh yeah, they're gonna.
Their feed efficiency rate's going to double.
That's right.
Happy.
They're going to eat twice as much feed tomorrow because they're more content
because they're happy.
Yeah.
So back to the methane and the biology 500 years ago. Because I was about to reference the number of bison.
Yes.
So. The conversion, the reference I was making was 300 million bison, not there anymore, but they were there. Maybe there were, and that's just the bison. That's not probably including the other.
Oh, elk and deer and
So let's just throw a few more million there. I don't know, I'm just assuming.
Yeah.
Now they're not there anymore, not in those numbers, but they would have been producing methane. In truckloads back then.
Of course.
And then, of course, they're not there, but what we have replaced them is domestic bovine and ovine and other ruminants.
Yeah.
But I don't think the numbers are quite where, we haven't gone one for one. I don't think there's as many domestic bovine in North America as there was bison.
No, that's correct. That's correct. And the other thing to remember is that if you measure the poundage of domestic livestock, all the pounds of domestic livestock in 1900, it's exactly the same as it is today. The big difference was we have substituted tractors for mules, horses, and oxen. Back in 1900, 1/3 of every farm was feeding a draft animal for draft power. Now, that weight is no longer draft power. It's chickens in confinement houses, pigs in confinement houses. But the weight of the animals has not changed. And so here we are, a century and a quarter past what we know the weights were, and they haven't changed at all. And suddenly these are all causing global warming. None of it makes sense. Yeah. None of it makes sense. And I say quickly, none of it makes sense. But that is not to excuse overgrazing, land abuse, and desertification, and the things that that a lot of livestock create. I don't want to downplay that.
No, and we're not. I mean, I certainly, it's interesting because I've got friends and colleagues who are very much going down technology that is potentially going to remove somehow, well, not somehow, I know how, it's been scientifically proven, whether it's scalable is another thing,
right.
Removing methane from the atmosphere, but that's a real thing now. And I think it's got hairs on it because, is that really, that's the twigs, is that really the problem? I mean, it might be, it's probably, one could argue what is the exact problem, but the methane, getting back to the domestic animals and the natural animals, there's probably more, if not less, methane going to the atmosphere from those terrible ruminants now anyway.
Well, possibly, and realize that, for example, right now, as we sit here today, America's cow herd, because we've had these droughts down south in Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, our cow herd right now is lower than it's been since 1950. Lower than it's been since 1950. And that's why the price of cattle has just gone through the roof here.
It's like double.
Oh, I mean, we've never seen anything like it. And of course, it'll crash. Everybody's saving heifers and everybody's building their herds now. And so, in a couple of years, it'll crash. But yeah, I think, if we just back up and look at it from a reasoned standpoint, none of it actually makes a causal link to livestock. None of it. And we've taken ice cores. We know that there used to be way more. And listen, here's one of my favorites. All those mastodons thawing out in Siberia with grass in their mouths, they weren't up in Siberia eating snow.
Regenerative Journey is brought to you by Regrarians. They're the creators of the Regrarians Open Consultancy, its ROC programs, a globally respected platform supporting farmers and land managers across the world to regenerate their landscapes and livelihoods. Now, the ROC program is now open for registrations through to October 2025, with in-person and online consultancies planned across Europe. And by the way, I interviewed Darren for episode 37 back in, I think, 2021. And Darren Doherty, the principal there at Regrarians, is an absolute genius at pulling together all the facets of holistic farm management and landscape function into this program. He's an absolute genius. He's a lovely bloke. And I couldn't encourage you more to get onto their website, learn more and register at regrarians.org/ROC-Europe-2025. And don't forget, subscribe and rate and review this episode on your favourite podcast platform. We'd very much appreciate that. Well, here's another one. And I only referenced it the other day. I can't remember who with. And Zach Bush, who I know has been here.
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, Zach. Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's a mind exploder.
He was in Australia late last year, but then the year before, towards the end of the year, and he did a talk. He did a series of talks, and one he said, I guess controversially for some. I was just lapping it up, going, "This is wow! I had not even thought of that." He's talking about. He said, "Thank God someone found that coal and that gas and that oil, because what was that coal and gas and oil? Before it was coal and gas and oil, it was vegetation. And where was it? It was in the Middle East and Siberia.
Right.
Your mastodon mates,
Right.
And so, how did it get there? Because it was in a massive abundance of biology.
Yes.
Right, and then and then it's. But what is it? It's carbon.
Right.
And where was that carbon to have been turned into a plant and then to oil? Well, it was in the atmosphere. So thank God they found that. And they're releasing. We've found a way to release it into the atmosphere where it's now available for sequestration.
And for plants, we know that when carbon dioxide increases in the atmosphere, plants grow better. I mean, this is Walter Yenny. I'm sure you
legend.
Walter. I mean, he is my he's my guy.
Is he a pin-up? Is he a pin-up boy?
Yeah. He's a scientist pin-up.
But he's hilarious. He's such a lovely guy.
He is. And of all the people that I've followed and listened to, he's the only one to me that actually makes sense, who actually connects the dots reasonably. And so it's. He's very aggressive. He says the whole greenhouse gas thing misses the whole thing. That's only 5% of the radiator of the planet. 95% is condensation, is evapotranspiration condensation, which requires a bacteria to condense a water molecule.
Yep.
Okay, yep. and so you have to have vegetation exuding bacteria in order to get water to condense and take all that energy out of the atmosphere, that heat out of the atmosphere to condense, and it can't be dust. Dust is not the same.
Because dust is dead.
Dust is dead.
You need
a living nucleus for that water to condense around, and that's why he says, we're getting more violent storms over vegetation, and even less rain over deserts, because the planet is trying to cool itself, and so it's going to move this condensation to where the bacteria are, which is over the tropics and over vegetation. And so his whole deal is, we've got to get stuff vegetated.
Yeah.
We've got to get, and when you look at the work that Darren Doherty, that Jeff Lawton, has done in the Middle East and in Australia, and you look at that kind of work, it's mind-boggling how they green what's a desert.
Yeah.
Through strategic water management and swales and very careful, and what happens is then it even a couple of square miles can affect the moisture. Alejandra, the rancher in Chihuahua, Mexico, he's at a 8-inch a year, I think, rainfall area. I mean, this is high desert and very, very. But he has a huge tract of land. His ranch is 100,000 acres. It's a big place, and the UN is now sending scientists there to document the fact that he's getting more rain because of his holistic grazing management, a la Alan Savory. He's actually creating more vegetation with mob stocking, herbivorous, solar conversion, lignified carbon sequestration, fertilization. And
that's one of your T-shirts here.
Yeah, that's right. And so he's getting this vegetation, and it's actually making the dew point change. It's bringing vapor, and he's got a big enough ranch to actually affect the local weather patterns. It's quite astounding.
That's a good point. The amount of money that's been raised to explore methane reducing technologies. And some is seaweed, right? You know, feed cows seaweed and reduces methane by X amount of percent. I think the fascinating thing there is, and from a production point of view, they're finding that it's actually increasing feed conversion or weight gain by 10 to 20%. That's the game changer with that seaweed stuff.
Well, that's probably because the cows are getting minerals.
Totally, yeah.
It's probably because the cows are so lacking in minerals.
Good profile.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, whether that's scalable or not, you know, it's like 30 grams a day or something, and they're having those results.
Right.
So money's raised for those sort of things. Well, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's interesting when, and other, you know, let's create big machines that extract carbon out of the atmosphere and store it in the wherever they're going to put it, all that sort of crazy stuff.
Yeah, the Rube Goldberg stuff.
Yeah. I mean, but if that money was put into like greening some of these deserts and the areas, like, because vegetation creates vegetation and more transpiration, and then you get atmospheric conditions. So if we really want to make a difference, and then all the sequestration, and look, yes, there's carbon in the form of timber, but that's a good thing. And then you've got some grazing going on in there as well. It's all, I mean, so to you and I and many others, the answer is pretty simple. But it's like, but it's not, for some reason, it's just not sexy or something. I don't know. What is it?
Well, I think it's the tragedy of the human condition. You know, we're not lazy humans generally. We're not lazy. Our problem, though, is that we're busy succeeding at the wrong things. You know, Stan Parsons, who developed the Ranching for Profit schools programs, he always said the problem is we become successful at hitting the bullseye of the wrong target. And so the tragedy that we're under is, we're making Alan Nation, the founder of Stockman Grass Farmer, my greatest mentor next to my dad. He said it's like a plane goes down in the Amazon rainforest, you know, but it went down gently and most everybody survives. Okay. Well, they look around and we got to get to civilization. You know, we can't be out here in the jungle. So they've got a couple guys there with machetes, you know, and so they got some machetes there. I mean, it is South America. Machetes are everywhere. So you take these and people start hacking through the jungle. Okay. We're going to go. And so they hack along for an hour or so, and there's a prophet in the, you know, some smart guy in the group, a poet or a prophet, you know, and he says, hey, I tell you what, let me shinny up this tree here and see where the nearest village is. So he shinnies up this tree, he looks out, and you know, and they're hacking this way, and he says, wait a minute, the village is over here. And they look up at him, you know, and say, shut up, you know, look at all the progress we're making. You know, that's what we've got. And for you and I, it's frustrating to see that level of investment going into something where gentle land massage, some strategic just management changes, move the cows every day, a little bit of electric fence, a little bit of water pipe, you know, and you completely change the whole equation. That's gentle. It's doable, and it would stretch those dollars so much farther than where they are. But yeah, I think maybe, you know, it's hubris. We love big technology projects. You know, we found look what we did.
And the businesses who are doing that don't have shareholders, apart from the owners. Like, you know, there's not there's profit motivation, obviously, in farming. But in terms of like a business going, right, we've got a whole lot of shareholders, we've got to satisfy, where's the next big thing? Forget that it's not actually a big thing, but it potentially could, you know, it's tapping into the guilt of the nation, or the you know, the soft spots, or the trendy things, and the, you know, the woke kind of mentality. Right. It's like, you know, which I guess was probably some of that Impossible Burger sort of stuff. It's like, we're going to save the planet, we're going to feed people stuff that's terrible for you, but it's going to save the planet, so it's okay. We won't talk about the health or the lack of health benefits. But look, there's no, you know, we're not going to turn that around today, but I guess something that I keep referring back to is, you know, we as farmers are often if not blamed for, all this methane and environmental degradation, where certainly it's highlighted we're responsible for it, which we are, but it's, people often think it's our responsibility to fix it, and it kind of is, but at the at the same time, that's a big responsibility on farmers' shoulders to save the planet. And I keep on saying, don't worry about the planet, worry about your life.
Oh, couldn't agree with
between
you more.
the boundary of your farm.
That's right.
Like, worry about that.
Yeah, the Chinese have a couple of sayings. One is if everybody swept in front of their own house, the whole world would be clean. Another one is, if you keep going the way you're going, you're going to end up where you're headed. But I like Wendell Berry. Wendell Berry, of course, is an American icon, in our movement, a writer. And he makes the point that when you get down to it, there are no global problems. They're only local problems. And you've even localized it more, come to your own farm boundaries. And if you solve those problems, if you build soil, if you hydrate the landscape, if you increase pollinators, call of the warbler, if you develop your own place, then that's your sphere of influence.
That's right.
And you concentrate there, and it actually increases your influence farther than if all you do is point fingers way out there of things that you can't influence anyway. And so for people who aren't farmers, what you can do is fund farmers who are building soil, and if you don't know who they are, well, turn off the TV and go find them. They're here. There are a lot of us, and find us, and it sounds selfish, but fund us. So we have the money to build ponds and make compost and make happy pigs.
Well, I mean, you're a business that needs to be profitable. You're doing good things. You're feeding people. It's not all about you. Like,
right.
What are they getting? They're buying nutritious food. It's going to feed their family, and they know that it's, food meters, not or food miles. There's and the dollar they're spending here is going to, as you say, is going to fund the pond or all those wonderful things. Let's go to something else. We did touch on it before, Joel. BC, before COVID and after COVID. I saw you just it was actually 6 months before, or a bit over 6 months before it all went to shit. But I was following your adaptation closely because it was really inspiring, and it was like a nice shiny light in a pretty dim kind of a world at that point. Can you tell people how you adapted to that? Because obviously there was you can't go anywhere. You can't, there was restrictions on movement. There was all sorts of restrictions, but you guys, you adapted to that pretty well. I mean, you had to, because you had products you had to sell.
Yeah. Well, what I mean, some we adapted, and some adapted to us. So what happened immediately was, at the time, we were servicing 40 or 50 restaurants, and virtually all of them went out of business.
Yeah.
So suddenly for us, that was $1 million a year in sales just vanished overnight. For a small business like us, that was devastating.
And you had chickens in the paddock? You
had stuff in the freezer. You had chickens. You had an inventory pipeline going in, assuming those sales. But the saving grace was the supermarket shelves went empty. And suddenly the store, we sold 6 months of inventory in 6 weeks. I mean, this place was crawling in here because this was the only place that had food.
Yeah.
And I talked to people in here, and they just told me, they said, a week ago, I would have never considered coming to buy something at a farm. Never would have considered it. Here I am, Now, how many of them are staying with us now? I don't know. It's a pretty small percentage, unfortunately, but that saved us. That really saved us. And the other thing we had done about not quite a year in advance, July 4, 2019, we had started shipping nationwide. You know, I was up until then, I was known as almost a cultist on local food. I mean, that's why Michael Pollan wrote Omnivore's Dilemma, because I wouldn't ship him a T-bone steak. He got mad, and then he said, well, I'm going to go visit this iconoclast. And so he came down here and spent a couple of days, and he said, oh, this is worth coming back for a week. And he came back for a week, and then, featured us in the Omnivore's Dilemma, which was, a pretty significant step in our platform.
Notoriety.
Yeah. So here we were, and shipping went nuts. Our on-farm sales went nuts, and of course, our sales. We service about 35 urban, what we call neighborhood drop points in the cities, and so we were servicing them, and those went very, very well too, because those folks didn't have.
They became hubs of pickups and so on.
Well, they had already been. It's just business picked up.
Yeah,
it was more.
Yeah.
And here at the farm, what we did, we made a big sign here on the farm store. Masks. Your body, your health, your choice.
Your choice. Yeah, good.
And about 90% of the people who came in loved it. Took pictures and buzzed about it. And hey, look. And about 10%, you could see them come in. They'd get out. They'd look at that. You see the horror on their eyes. They'd jump back in their car like they were in hell. Gone. And,
Yep.
And zoop, they couldn't get turned around here and get out of here fast enough. Yep. Who are these people? So, that's how we adapted to it. But listen, I smelled a rat early within, 6 weeks when our state, our governor, and people were doing it all over the country, shutting down farmers markets, but keeping liquor stores and Costco and Walmart open because they were essential, but farmers markets weren't. And the very audacity of a government agent to say your job is non-essential. I mean, here we are, we're reeling from this thing. People don't know exactly what it is and what's going to happen next. And then to be told you're non-essential. I mean, what does that do to your emotions? And we know that stress and emotions are linked up to our immune system. I mean, that's part of how we function as an immune system. And so here you are, you're not supposed to touch anybody, so you can't hug in grief. You can't. We were basically shut down from the human experience for that. And as soon as that edict came out, farmers markets are closed, but liquor stores, Sam's Club and Walmart are open. So,
and what was it with like the fast foods, like McDonald's? Did they stay open?
They stayed open only in the window.
The drive-through.
Drive-through, yeah. And that was our problem with our restaurants that we serviced, all those restaurants. We didn't service restaurants that had drive-in windows. We were servicing family-style restaurants where you go in and sit down. And so if you didn't have a drive-in window, a drive-up window at that time, you were out of business. And in the U.S., I don't know what all the other countries, but in the U.S., in that year, it literally transferred, I don't know how much, 60%, 70% anyway, the wealth, the equity of the family style, sit down restaurant to fast food. Fast food made out like a bandit. That COVID made a lot of brand new millionaires, and it impoverished a lot of people as well. So it was just such a societal upheaval. But here on the farm, we didn't do anything. We didn't mask. We didn't quit hugging each other. We didn't do anything. We just did business as usual, and literally, trying to meet the demand that was out there. The consumer demand.
Do you think you mentioned that maybe not many of those people who did turn up for that, 6 months worth of food in 6 weeks, or at least bought it? Mm-hmm. Do you think, and you reckon a small percentage of them sort of stuck with it? any sense of why? Was it just like, oh, shoot, I need food. This is where I can get it.
Yeah.
No interest in you or the thing. It's just like, I need a chicken. You know what I mean? And then they go back to
I think they needed food. They didn't have food. I mean, our cities only have 3 days worth of food.
Yeah.
3 days worth of food. So when you have panic like that, and of course, then as soon as panic set in, then people started hoarding. They'd go in and they'd buy 20 pounds of ground beef, whatever, and it wasn't that there wasn't any food. It was just not packaged for retail. It was packaged for institution. Well, the school shut down, the cafeteria shut down. I mean, everything shut down. And so all this institutional food, I mean, half of the food goes to institutions. And of course, and they don't get 1 pound packages of ground beef. They get 50-pound bags of ground beef, or they get, 50-pound bags of oats or Cheerios or whatever. And so the problem was the packaging. The packaging wasn't there for the retail sale. We had the same thing here. We ran out of 1 pound ground beef quick. All we had left were 5 pound. That's our biggest package, a 5 pound package. And so we said, buy a 5 pound package, take a hacksaw, cut it, put it in another bag. You don't have to thaw it. Just take a hacksaw, cut through it. Take a circle saw. Cut through.
Do it. Work out how.
Yeah. Or you can go thaw it all.
Yeah.
Cook it all, and then freeze it.
Yeah.
So we had the same thing here. It's just that our packages weren't as big. Yeah. Our institutional packages, wholesale packages, were not as big as what the industrial food chain had. So, yeah, it was quite an upheaval. I think the worst where it hit us was at these delivery drop points. The emotional, social interactions of customers queued up, to get their stuff. And here's one, maybe a conservative Republican. This is a joke. You're not wearing a mask. Well, then you've got this liberal Democrat, behind her. What? They're just and they're getting into a cat fight in line to get our food to pick up their orders over this, and it traumatized our delivery driver. She was She was so traumatized. She ended up, she wanted to quit. Yeah. She just, I can't, because she was on pins and needles. People were literally, I don't know that anybody actually landed a blow, but it was that close.
Well, I guess they might have been a bit stressed and, unusual circumstances, but I would have thought they'd just been happy getting food. Like, you know what? That's not a big deal. Like, we're lucky to get food.
Yeah, you'd think so. But you know what, Charlie, think about it, the whole demeanor of that whole time was snitching, telling on people.
Yeah.
The whole thing was about that. And, if you don't comply and kowtow to our thing. Look at how they demonized people who wouldn't take the jab. That was strictly a
vilified this is a war. The war of the unvaccinated.
Yeah, it was a vilification of if you didn't acquiesce to the narrative. It wasn't just okay. Well, that's your perspective. Fine, we'll just agree to disagree. No, it was. You're going to kill me.
Yeah.
Teresa and I talked about, because we didn't take the jab. We didn't believe in it at all. And we talked about how different this was than just disagreements or different perceptions. Because here are people running around. They actually think that you and I, because we didn't take the jab, we're murderers. They're calling us murderers.
Irresponsible, yeah.
Yeah, and that puts a whole different light on it. You can't say, oh, well, sorry, let's just agree to disagree. That doesn't give you that wiggle room,
No.
And so we hunkered down here. Of course, I had five international, speaking engagements, conferences. All of them were canceled.
Yeah.
And so I was here, and it was.
Was that a? I mean, you couldn't go anywhere, so you had to do it. But I mean, that was probably was it a nice little reprieve from?
It was. Yeah, there were a lot of positives to it, and then a year later, Putin invades Ukraine. And then we have that whole thing.
It's all over again.
We have that whole thing to, to deal with.
And you, lovely Americans, I think just the other day, just signed up for over 10 years, another $1 trillion. Something. How much are you sending over there?
Yeah, it's just unspeakable. It's just crazy. I don't.
Can I ask you about
I'm glad. I'm glad I'm not having to be up there making decisions. I can sit here and disagree with decisions. And I'm willing to admit there are things that I don't know. I'm certainly willing to admit that. So I don't get too bent out of shape. I'm far more concerned about our runaway debt. I mean, our debt is so high that within a month or two now, the interest on the American national debt will eclipse our entire defense budget,
which is big.
It's very, very big.
Yeah.
And so it's a real issue.
I wonder who actually is all that money owed to, because I only heard was it yesterday or something about China. And their banks are going, how much money they owe. So I'm not actually sure who we all owe money to. I'm conscious of the time too, because it's just after 6. Mm-hmm. I did have a question for you. Oh, just a quick one. Have you got any thoughts on? Because it was only a couple of days ago since Trump sort of got a bit of a touch up. Do you any thoughts on that? I mean, who knows what exactly happened? But it's not clear.
Yeah,
it's not black and white.
No. Heads are going to roll. I think. Here's the bottom line. I think where we are right now is because of COVID, the level of trust in anything that used to be trustworthy is gone. Mm. People don't trust the media. They don't trust the government. They don't trust. Good night. They don't even trust each other. The level of trust is at a low point like we've never seen. So when something like Saturday happens and Trump gets within millimeters of being assassinated, and the FBI or the Secret Service holds a press conference, they're not even trusted. And so what COVID truly, it simply completely crippled, it broke the back of the trustworthiness of institutions in this country. And I think that's going to be hard won. It's going to take a long time to bring that back. So, there are already, theories running around that it was an inside job. The guy was on the roof for 30 minutes and people were saying, there's a guy with a gun, and the police helped him to get up there and nobody, all this stuff. And the fact is, I'm sitting here post-COVID and I don't believe anything an official says. Right now in this country, we're getting almost every day reports of bird flu. Bird flu is hot in the news right now. And it's just everywhere. And the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, says, all these birds had bird flu in Texas. Then it got into this dairy herd, and a worker got pink eye from it, and 24 cats drank milk, and the 24 cats died. And that's terrible. That's worse than a child dying, is a cat dying. And so I'm reading these reports, and I have to admit, my first reaction is, why should I believe the CDC? Yeah. CDC told us this, that. The British guy that says we're going to lose 10 million people. I mean, now we know his all of his figures, all of his assumptions were completely false, fraudulent even. And so what do you do with all this? So I believe the world, if we say the world, is like a wasp nest on the back porch. You ever had a wasp nest on the back porch? You know, the size of a softball. And you go in and out of the back porch every day, and you look up there, and there's those bees, and they're just hanging out. You know, they're just sitting there. You wonder, you know, what do they do all the time? They just sit there, and you know, occasionally you see one, you know, fly off and come back, but mainly they just look like they're chilling out. And one day, you know, you and your beloved, you decide, let's clean off the back porch today. That's today's project. So you're out there, you know, and you're cleaning up, and you happen to bump the rafter with the broom handle accidentally. Now the bees don't come after you, but you look up and suddenly they're all up. They're all ready. Yeah, man. Their wings are out and they're ready to roll. They don't know what hit. They don't know who the enemy is. They don't know where they're going, but they're ready. And I feel like that's the way the world is right now. The world is just like that bumped beehive. People don't quite know where's the bad guy, you know, who is the enemy? I don't know who the enemy is, but I just feel like there's an enemy out there and I'd better be ready. And I just feel like that's like the world. So I do a huge number. We are having an explosion in this country of homestead conferences. I mean, it's just sweeping the country. And these things attract 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. They're huge. And you know, I'm speaking at, I don't know what, 12 of them. I mean, it's just they're all over the place. And the phrase that I hear all the time is, I just want to disentangle. And this is part of this trust thing. Nobody trusts they don't trust the Fed, they don't trust the president, they don't even trust the military, don't trust anybody. And they just want to disentangle. And they're concerned that things are going to unravel, you know, that things are going to unravel. And if things are going to unravel, what we call the wheels falling off, there's one place you don't want to be. You don't want to be in a city. You want to be out where you can drink out of a spring, you know, shoot a deer or a kangaroo, and you know, and make a shelter. Okay, I mean, you know, you want to be out where you can do, and so that's driving something. But the other movement that's really, besides the homestead, is the wellness movement. I mean, acupuncture, I call it all the medical quackery, you know, the red light and the Reiki. I mean, people who would have never even looked at this. And here's why I think the two are linked. The two are linked because if the wheels are going to fall off, there's a place you don't want to be, that's in the city. And there's a position you don't want to be in, and that is sick. You don't want to be the one in the back bedroom that says, "Hey, as y'all flee the front door, can you take me with you?" You don't want to be
crook.
You don't want to be that guy. No. And so I think that this whole, you know, self-reliance, resilience movement of urban to rural migration, and it truly is linked very closely with this whole kind of, you know, alternative wellness movement. And it's truly these are big movements. There's something to see.
And that's really positive, isn't it? You know, because just thinking about what you said, you know, you don't want to be reliant. I mean, how would it feel to be reliant on someone you don't trust?
That's right.
Which is pretty much, you know, you're staying in the city, you got to trust the government, you got to trust everything is going to be smooth, you got to trust you can flick the switch and the
you got to trust the power company, the water company.
Supermarket's going to have food, all that stuff.
That's right. That the truckers are going to get there. Yeah, absolutely.
There was I saw the other day too, was a wonderful kind of a point was made that however all this stuff happened, you know, COVID and however, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. But you know, what we do know is that what it did is it squeezed out the leaders and the resilient people, and it kind of it distilled and it filtered a tribe of people that and a case in point are now homesteading, and they're all down that track. And, you know, it was a challenging time, but the outcome could be quite positive.
No question, no question. You know, in America, 36% of the population did not take the jab. 36%.
That's quite high. That was quite high. I didn't know all this stats here, but that's quite high. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, at the time, I was concerned that it would be 10%. You know, but 36%. Now that's not half, but it's a significant portion. And I would say now, with all the complications that are coming from there's heart attacks, there's child death. I mean, there's all sorts of things happening. I mean, we see medical people come into the shop here and buy food. And I talk to the medical staff, and I can tell you, nurses and all this, when a young person comes in with myocardial infarction or any really serious life-threatening, the first question the ER staff asks them is, did you get the shot? I mean, that tells you a lot. And this is just coming from nursing staff. You know, this is what we do now. And so that whole, 36 didn't take it at all, and percent. And I would say that probably maybe half, maybe not quite half, but probably close to half of the people who did take the jab now wish they hadn't. Well, now you're 36 plus about 20. Now you're over half the population that believes they got hornswoggled.
Totally.
And that's very positive. It's very positive because it means people are ripe for alternative currencies. They're ripe for stepping completely out of the system, going to, a home, an in-home herbal apothecary, growing their herbal apothecary, making their own tinctures, going to seminars to learn how to make tinctures. I mean, this is phenomenal. You know, we didn't see this 30 years ago. We're all rocking along and everything's fine. And now, you know, people are
maybe more discerning now. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're certainly more dubious of the conventional narrative, whatever the conventional narrative is. They're more dubious of it, and that, I couldn't agree more, is a very positive thing. We've been needing that for a long time.
Talking about positive things, one more question. We do a little quick Q&A after this, is a little separate thing. But I'm always interested in people's parenting advice. You're a father who has, no doubt, given what I know about your children, done amazing things. Have you got any general parenting advice that you can give our listeners and watchers? Is there anything you want to just kind of? What's worked for you?
I guess the main. there are a couple things, and I'm certainly not the world's greatest parent, but we do have two pretty amazing kids. The first thing is, you parents need to get on the same page. And wherever we've made our big mistakes, I think Teresa and I have been where we haven't been in agreement. You've got to get an agreement first, and then beyond that, you have to release those kids to express their bent, their direction. They're not going to be like you. In fact, where you're weak, they will accentuate your weakness, and where you're strong, they'll probably accentuate your strength. And that's fine, but just be prepared for that. I am a big believer, and remember that it takes about 10 praises per correction. Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People talks about emotional equity. And the fact is, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to say an unfit word. We're going to jump to conclusions. All right. So is there enough equity in your emotional equity gas tank to handle those times when you do the improper thing or say the improper thing? And so praise. Most families grow up, if nobody says anything, it's cool. But if I do anything wrong, boy, I hear about it. Well, let me tell you, you got to hear about it when you do right things. And so we parents, we need to really support with praise so we earn the equity to make correction at some point. And finally, I'll just say that I'm a big believer in child entrepreneurism. And I think there's a magic time between about 8 and 10 years old when a child is ripe for their own business, for their own entrepreneurial opportunity. Before 8, a lot of times they'd rather have a shiny quarter than a paper dollar. Okay, so by 8 though, they kind of learn, I think I'd rather have the dollar. There's kind of an awareness there of money. And after about 10 or 11, they become self-conscious. So between 8 and 10, they know how to, they can learn how to keep a ledger and a simple accounting system, and income and outgo, that sort of thing. But they're not old enough to be self-conscious about things. My favorite story on this is our granddaughter, Lauren. She had 2 older brothers, and one of them had ducks and one of them had lambs. They had their businesses. Well, here she comes along and she doesn't have one yet. She was younger, and she doesn't have one yet. And unbeknownst, we had a chicken pickup day here, so she knew there were going to be customers in the store. And so she goes out, unbeknownst to any of us, goes out around the pond, the field. She picks this pretty bouquet of wildflowers. She comes in the store and she kind of, she's like 4 years old. And she kind of cases the joint, looks around, and she picks this one handsome, tall guy there. She walks up to him and she says, I'm Lauren, and I picked these flowers and I'm selling them for $1. And I'm sure your wife would really, enjoy a bouquet. She might have been 5, but she was little.
That's
all
pretty
right?
savvy.
Yeah. And she says, but here was the funny, and we all suddenly, we're all watching this, because she did this completely on her own. No
prompting.
No prompting.
Yeah.
But what was amazing, before the guy could even answer, she had plan B ready. She said, if you don't have a wife, I'm sure you know a lady who would love to have a bouquet. She was ready with plan B. Here's my point. A 12-year-old would never do that.
No.
12-year-old would never do that.
Yeah.
So it takes that age, that young age, to old enough to kind of understand money, but young enough to not be self-conscious about presenting to people.
Yeah.
I just think there's a magic age there, and both of our. I had my first chickens when I was 10. Daniel and Rachel, our 2 kids, both had their businesses during that time, and developed them then further on. All of our grandkids did. I just am a really big believer that young people need that kind of responsibility, understanding of how difficult a profit is, how hard it is to get people to part with money and buy my thing, and those sorts of things. And so I'm just a big believer in that period of time to try to cultivate some sort of entrepreneurial opportunity for your kids.
Well, it certainly, gives them the opportunity to make mistakes.
Yes.
And hone their skills and, experience the world, interaction, finance,
yes,
productivity, resourcefulness, all those things.
Exactly.
That's a great 8 to 10. Lordy, who you met today, he's 6.5. Actually, 6.5. So Better start keeping an eye on him.
Yeah. Well,
Classic.
I think we've done children a really big disservice. I mean, you ask parenting about, listen, I mean, I'm so glad that we were there before TikTok, before Facebook, before all this stuff. This stuff is awful. It's awful. And so I think we've done a lot of disservice to our children today, to our children, and I'm going on up into the teen years, of not allowing or not encouraging, certainly not encouraging, and a lot of times criminalizing their participation in the adult world. It used to be all the paper boys were kids, apple pickers were kids, shelf stockers in the store were kids. I mean, 14, 15 years old. But we have gradually, at least in our, sophisticated Western cultures, we have gradually marginalized, then demonized, and then criminalized that. And I think it's absolutely abusive. What creates self-worth? Well, this 20-year-old that just shot Trump.
Yeah.
Okay. What did his classmates say? He was bullied. He was an outcast. He never fit in. How do you develop self-worth in a young person? I'm not a child psychologist, but here's my formula. I believe self-worth comes from successfully accomplishing meaningful tasks. And all four of those words are important. Successfully accomplishing meaningful tasks. In other words, patting Johnny and Susie on the head and saying, you're a good little boy and a good little girl, they're smart enough to ask, well, good for what? Yeah. What did I do? And we've banished these kids to social media and video games without actually chores, without gathering eggs, canning green beans, cutting corn, whatever, raising pigs, toting firewood. We've banished them to just inane, silly, non-meaningful stuff. And they don't have an identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know their value because they've never done anything valuable. They've never accomplished a meaningful task. And so in our households, in our families, I think the best thing we can do for the next generation is to create that habitat where our children are successfully accomplishing meaningful tasks. I mean, even setting the table to eat, washing the dishes, boys too, okay? I mean, this is not a sexist thing, but accomplishing these meaningful tasks. So as they become 12 and 13 and 14, well, I can do this. I can bake a cake. I can handle a knife. I can, these things, and they know who they are because they've done important things.
And they've one of the great pieces of child advice that I heard many years ago was someone asked a child psychologist, what do kids need? What do children need to be successful? And she said, love and chores. That's all I need.
Yeah, love and chores.
Love and chores.
Yeah, that's right.
And the other thing to add was a different conversation with someone else is they have too many choices and lack of consequences. Video games are terrible because they get shot, they just go reset, back to normal. There are no consequences, and that becomes a life kind of a pattern.
Yeah, and when you're 16 and you wrap your car around a tree, life doesn't just give you a new car in a video game to drive away on.
Yeah.
And so you live in this fantasy. That's why I love children's gardens because, this is your plot, Johnny or Sally, okay? This is your plot. And if that tomato plant dies, your fault, nobody's, whatever it is, okay? Tomato plant dies. Life doesn't give you another tomato plant. This is for all the marbles.
Yeah.
And this is not fantasy. It's real life. And so when you encounter that, I think you come into adulthood realizing, oh, the planet doesn't revolve around me? Really? It doesn't? It's not at the end of my fingertips? Really? Oh, you mean there's something bigger here going on than a screen and my fingertips and me? Yeah. Something magnificent, something mysterious, something wonderful is going on.
And I guess just to finish on that one, the homesteading movement you talked about before, I'm sure would help foster that kind of parental.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope so.
Absolutely, because suddenly you have chores. Yeah. Suddenly you have meaningful tasks. Yes. And you have all sorts of entrepreneurial opportunities. Yeah. The entrepreneurial opportunity doesn't have to be actually, selling outside. It can be simply, okay, Mary, the chickens are now your business. We'll pay you, $6 a dozen for eggs. And guess what? Now suddenly Mary is careful about cracked eggs. She's taking care of the nest box so the chickens don't eat the eggs, and she's trying to keep them clean so she doesn't spend so much time, cleaning them that she doesn't get paid for, because she's only get paid for clean eggs. All these things enter into your thinking when you turn it from just an uncompensated have to. Now, I'm not into compensating for stuff that you do because you're human. Okay. In other words, I'm not going to pay you to make your bed. I'm not going to pay you to put your dirty clothes in the clothes hamper. I mean, at our house, nobody gets paid for cleaning the toilet. Okay. But if nobody does, it gets to be a stinky world. So there are absolutely things that you should do and participate in as part of the human family. Okay.
Yeah. Contribution.
Yeah. Contribution. But when it can be broken out special, and it is germane to economic benefit to the family or others, and it can be broken off as an entrepreneurial gig, man, that just feeds flourishing and maturity in a child's mind.
I have a saying, and I say it a lot. Our job as parents is to prepare our children to leave us. Mm-hmm. So,
that's right.
The commerciality and the finances.
That's
and
right.
The responsibility.
We don't want boomerang kids.
We want them gone.
That's right.
And surviving. Yeah. Joel, I have two things for you. A packet of Tim Tams.
Oh man, look at this!
Tim Tam. Have you had Tim Tams before?
I think I've had them in Australia.
You would have had them in Australia. So my grandfather invented them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then you get to choose a colour bandana. You got dark blue, light blue, or whatever colour it is, brown, red. Grey.
Oh.
And I said to you before, you have to pretend that you like it.
Oh, I love them. I'm gonna take the red one.
Oh, red.
The red
popular
red.
red.
Thank you. Wow.
No, you don't have to wear it.
Yeah.
I did notice that Daniel's got one sitting there, so you can just hang it.
That's cool. That's beautiful.
And it's got a little. If you forget who it's from,
it's got
that.
It's got
head
you
on it.
right on the corner. Yeah, it's got you right on the corner.
Joel,
that's really cool.
I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed our day. A few hours here, the tour, our chat now. Very much appreciated. I know you have got a massive schedule. You were busy all this morning and early this afternoon. Now you're heading off for a few more days, and you've got a whole lot of swagger people coming for the next 2 months, pretty much. So to fit me in at this late stage, late in the day, I really appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love your support by subscribing, rating and reviewing The Regenerative Journey on your favourite podcast platform. You help us reach more people and keep the show thriving for seasons to come. Each time you listen, you're choosing to make a positive shift in your own world. And if an episode speaks to you, please pass it on to friends, family or communities who might be inspired too. For more details and episodes, visit www.charliearnott.com.au.